Oh, welcome everyone. We're recording this sort of Q&A update on JobKeeper 2.0, which the government announced last Tuesday, so a week on. And so it's effectively an extension to the original JobKeeper program that was launched back in March. And yeah, so I'll just go through a few slides, do an update there. So as I said, it's not necessarily a new program. There's a couple of new twists to it all, but it's really much an extension to March next year on the original program that started back in March on 2020. So the important, I suppose, point to make first is that there's no change to the existing program that is set to run out at the end of September, or the 27th of September. So there was probably some commentary or some rumours that they may get people to reset the test, the turnover test for businesses before the end of September. Probably with all the outbreak in Victoria, etc., all that went away with the announcement last week. And so, so if you've qualified based on the turnover test back in, say, in March or April, whatever, if you're in the system now, you still can keep claiming for JobKeeper until the end of September. You don't need to reset another test. I've had a few clients ring me and say, I'm not going to claim because business is back to normal, or they don't, not 30% or more down on their turnover. But you do still qualify if you've qualified in previous months under the current sort of timeframes. So what are the changes? The changes are probably twofold. First off, in the actual amounts that are paid. So currently it's a one flat rate across the board of $1,500 per fortnight for every employee. So that drops to $1,200 per fortnight for full-time employees. And that's in the sort of effectively the December quarter, and then drops once again to $1,000 per fortnight from the 4th of January, which is really the March 21 quarter. They've also introduced I suppose a defining line between full-time employees and part-time or casuals and business participants. So, so that cluster now is effectively a new cluster, and that rate is $750 a fortnight, not the $1,500. So that's dropped by half effectively. So that's for the December quarter, and then they'll drop to $650 per fortnight from the 4th of January, which is really the March quarter. So a common question will be, how do I define what my part-time or casual employees are? So as the Treasury guideline is put out, it's the 4 weeks prior to the 1st of March. So 1st of March 2020 was the sort of the snapshot of what employers had on their books. And so saying the 4 weeks prior to the 1st of March, which is effectively 4 weeks of February 2020, is where you would work out whether someone is part-time or casual. So it still doesn't change the fact that the casual must have been with you for 12 months or more. So it's still a regular casual. That definition hasn't changed, but they've just introduced a different scale for those casuals that did qualify back in March and those part-timers back in March. So it gets around the the anecdotal ones where McDonald's employees, not big on McDonald's, but just they might have 1 or 2 shifts a week and they're getting the full $1,500 and the same amount as the full-timers. So that just gets around that anomaly that they're having a 2-tier system. The other change really is the turnover test. As I mentioned at the start, there's no change to the no test required for those in the system now. What they've done though is everyone who wants to be part of the extension will need to sit a new turnover test. And they've scrapped a lot of the options that are available, and they've just pretty much stripped it back to quarters and actual figures that align with your BAS figures. So pretty much the rule of thumb is going to be, when you do your BAS for June 2020, compare it to June 19 using the same methodology. Was your turnover on the BAS less than 30% or not to qualify? Then you also, that's step 1. Step 2 will be to have the extension. You need to qualify exactly the same methodology in the September 2020 quarter. So there's a little bit of there'll be a short window for those who they wanted to get the extension because typically your BAS is not done until sort of late October or something like that. But to qualify, you need to have your BAS figures ready at the end of September. So that's to get the extension for particularly for the December quarter, which runs out on the 3rd of January 21. And then you've got another turnover test. So effectively, there's going to be 2 tests to keep going. If you want to go through to March, if you qualify through March, there's 2 turnover tests. So one is June and September quarter, both must get the green light effectively. And then to get to the March quarter, you need to then also qualify in your December quarter that it's more than 30% turnover drop for that quarter. So there's 3 quarters you need to have 30% drop. I've seen a little bit of commentary where it's an accumulative. It seems to be written at the moment, and we're still waiting for some of the detail, that you need to qualify each of the quarters as a standalone quarter. So for example, you can't have, I dropped by, say 25% in the June quarter, and then I've dropped by 45% in the September quarter, and average 30%. There's a little bit of commentary still about whether that would be applicable, but as it stands at the moment, my reading is it had to be at least 30% drop in each of the quarters. So as I said, the first time around, there was quite a bit of flexibility. You could do a snapshot of monthly turnover tests. So some businesses, when the COVID shutdown happened in Tassie, they qualified based on the monthly turnover test. That might have been April or March or something like that. That's gone away with it. It's purely just a quarterly test. It's based on the actuals that reported in your BAS. So no monthly test, no forecast turnover test. There was a test you could have done originally back in to forecast the June quarter. So all that's gone away with. And just to re-emphasise again, this doesn't mean you have to redo the test for your current qualification. This is talking about to extend it post the end of September. So when I talk about the turnover test, what is it exactly? So for 99.9% of the businesses that are they're all under 1 billion turnover, it's a 30% turnover drop test. For ACNC registered charities or not-for-profits, it's a 15% turnover test. So those aspects still remain going forward. So just to recap on the eligible employees, as I said, they've changed the 2-tiered approach post the end of September for part-time and casuals, but the eligibility rules still remain unchanged. So that employee must have been employed by that business as of the 1st of March 2020. So if you're employing new staff and the business qualifies, you still don't get it for that new employee. It's got to only be for employees that were registered or employed as of the 1st of March. They haven't changed the definition. It's a full-time, part-time, or what they call a systematic casual, regular casual, greater than 12 months or more. The only thing that's changed for those casuals is that the pay rate will change, or the reimbursement rate. No change on the residency requirement, or if you're a New Zealand visa holder. So a lot of hospitality businesses have employees that are on temporary visas, student visas, etc. There's no change to that. They don't come into the system. What also remains is that employee can only claim for one employee. So if they have, say, 2 casual jobs still, you can only still get the JobKeeper for 1. What may change a little bit is that because their rate drops, it may qualify some people to get the job seeker. So they're probably, from a sort of Treasury guideline perspective, are trying to wean people off being job keeper only, and some people may start to pick up some job seeker allowances post to the end of September if their rates dropped, and certainly for the March quarter next year. So we still have the same rules applies to eligible business participants. That's, if you're in a partnership, one partner gets it, same rules apply. If you're a sole trader, you still get it. If you've got no other full-time work elsewhere, if you're a working director, all those rules still apply. And it looks like, unfortunately, the rate for a business participant, they're clustered with the part-time and casual, so that rate will drop after the end of September as well. So that's sort of JobKeeper 2.0. I'll just open up to anyone who might have some questions.
No, you explained that very well.
Very well.
Yeah.
What are you seeing, Christine? Questions from your clients?
No, not at this stage. Everything's sort of bobbing along really well.
Yep.
And as I said, you've just answered everything very clearly, so should be all to go.
So, as I said, I think there'll be a bit of a crunch time. So when people do their June BAS, that'll be a sort of a yes/no sort of decision tree. If you pretty much your turnover hasn't dropped by more than 30% in the June quarter, then end of September will be the end of JobKeeper for that business. So the thing it does for me, it does allow some good planning for people, so that then if you're looking at some of their workforce going forward, what their business looks like, it gives people a bit of time to say, okay, I've got JobKeeper to the end of September, but it's not going to extend, have the conversations with staff, what it might look like, etc. So what are we now, end of July? So it gives people sort of a couple of months to have a bit of a smoother transition if the business is going to come off JobKeeper altogether. Then we'll have those that will qualify based on June, and if the business is still restricted in its activity, if tourism related, etc., then there will be sort of a crunch time to quickly crunch the numbers come the end of September to keep going forward. So there'll be a little bit of uncertainty for those types of businesses. Those that are still in the accommodation space, for example, we haven't got the borders open to anything of note until August, so they're probably still going to anecdotally still qualify for the September extension, and then see where they go from there. It will remove those businesses that probably up and down a bit in terms of turnover, because it's doing a quarterly snapshot. So it's probably, I think they've got the balance right, but there's still assistance. They avoided going, I suppose, at an industry level, because it is hard to classify different industries. So they've just done the turnover test. They've picked up that anomaly of part-timers and casuals getting paid more than what they probably were before JobKeeper. So they've sort of removed that out and put their hands in the pocket for another few $1 billion onto the tab till the end of March. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll sign off. It was sort of short and sharp, but I thought it was just important. I suppose the key takeaways are, if you're in JobKeeper now, no change, but pretty much by the end of September, you need to work through your turnover calculations, keep going from there. All right.
So just one thing you said with partners, only one person gets the JobKeeper in that partnership.
Yeah, for a partnership. Yeah.
Okay, because I put in for one of my clients' employees, but it didn't add the partnership into it, so I might bring the ATO.
The partnership has to apply as the employer, and then you nominate. Yeah, that's what should happen on the
that's all right.
Portal.
I'll sort that.
All right. Well, we might stop there. So thanks for listening in.
No worries. Thank you.
See if you have any questions.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.